Breaker 19, this here's a rubber duck. You got a copy on me, Big Ben? Come on. Yeah, 10-4, Big Ben, for sure. By golly, it's clean clear to Flagtown. Come on. Yeah, it's a big 10-4 there, Big Ben. Yeah, we definitely got the front door, good buddy. Mercy sakes alive, it looks like we've got us a convoy.
Welcome back to Soccer Morning on NASN with Jason Davis.
Good morning, everybody. Happy Thursday. Jason Davis here, Soccer Morning, North American Soccer Network. Thank you to Rick and Philly for our music today. Yes, Convoy by C.W. McCall. Why Convoy by C.W. McCall? I have no idea. No idea. Rick, you're going to have to explain that one. Rick apparently wanted to balance out Maxi Rodriguez from yesterday. Maxi gave us a very Mexican flavor to the show, which was appropriate in the light of USA-Mexico happening in Glendale, Arizona last night at the University of Phoenix Stadium, a stadium named after a university that does not have a campus. Okay. USA 2, Mexico 2, by the way, plenty of talk about that today. That's going to be the lead story, at least in the American context. We're going to talk Champions League. We're going to talk about FIFPro's report on depression and anxiety in footballers. We have the chief medical officer from FIFPro, Dr. Vincent, my French accent is falling apart, Vincent Goudabarge. He'll join us a little bit later. And then after that, our friend David Cartledge, Spanish soccer expert, will join us to talk about Champions League yesterday. Real Madrid taking care of Dortmund in their home leg of their Champions League tie. And then, obviously, Barcelona's transfer ban, what that might mean for the Catalan team. And then whether or not there are other clubs being investigated for the same thing. Because this is not Barcelona alone doing this. Barcelona got caught. Barcelona's being punished. Are we going to see other dominoes fall? It'd be very interesting. Let me take the opportunity to remind you, if you missed yesterday's show, we have kicked off a listener support campaign for Soccer Morning to keep us going into the rest of 2014 with a World Cup coming along. All of the European club action, what's happening in MLS, certainly Mexico, which we cover pretty comprehensively, South America, which we're going to be working in more and more as we move forward, and we do cover occasionally here. In order to keep all of that going, we need your help. SoccerMorning.com is where you need to go to find out more. Just a little bit goes a long way. Just keep that in mind. All right, so USA-Mexico. USA 2, Mexico 2, in front of about 60,000 people there in Glendale, most of them wearing green and rooting for Mexico, but a very strong contingent of USA supporters. The American Outlaws represented well, as they do, as they always do. I believe the TIFO theme was San Zusi. Graham Zusi was the focus of the TIFO. Appropriate, considering the opponent. Considering the fact that Zusi is the one who scored the goal that put Mexico into the World Cup. They should be thanking Graham Zusi, blah, blah, blah. The game itself was a study in contrast. It's amazing how often this narrative plays out. The cliche, it's a game of two halves, exists for a reason. Because so often you have a first half dominated by one team. They dictate the tempo. They have possession. They create the chances. They score the goals. And then something changes. A tactical adjustment is made. A couple of substitutes come in. And the other team takes control in the second half. And that's clearly what we saw yesterday with the United States and Mexico. In the first half, with that odd 4-4-2 diamond, which we haven't seen from the United States and Jurgen Klinsmann before, the Americans dominated. They passed the ball around. They created chances. Michael Bradley was amazing. Absolutely amazing. Just reinforcing that already deeply held belief that as Michael Bradley goes, this team goes. And it was not in his customary role that we have seen before so often. He was positioned much higher up the pitch, asked to do much more in attack than he usually is, and it's clear. And if you've been watching TFC so far this year, and if you've seen Michael Bradley, look, in his European trips, his European experience, the clubs he played for, very rarely was he asked to make the killer pass, to be the guy who sprang the forward for the goal. But he's capable of it, clearly. At least in this context. In an MLS context, he certainly is. In a CONCACAF context, he certainly is. I think he's capable on a world stage, on a World Cup stage as well. We'll find out. We may find out. Because this is an interesting development in the process of getting to the World Cup for the United States of America, is whether or not they're going to make a distinct tactical change just 70 days, 70 whatever days ahead of opening up with Ghana. That's kind of crazy. Let's be honest about this. It's kind of crazy. Not only did Jurgen Klinsmann kick Martin Vasquez off his roster, off his staff, and bring in Tab Ramos and sign up Bertie Votes to be a consultant, he did this thing last night, which is playing a 4-4-2 diamond with Michael Bradley at the point. Leave Landon Donovan off the team, and the reports during the game and in the aftermath were that not only was Landon Donovan not sharp in training, he may have been carrying some tendonitis in his knee, but he wasn't sharp. And give Jurgen Klinsmann credit. We know he's been back and forth with Landon Donovan. It's been a very rocky relationship outwardly, at least in terms of what Donovan has contributed to the United States on the field since Klinsmann took the job. It hasn't always been smooth. I don't think that there's a problem behind the scenes. I don't think that it's not that they don't get along. But clearly, Landon Donovan has been up and down as a U.S. national team player since Jurgen Klinsmann took the job. And in this case, Klinsmann made the appropriate choice, one that a head coach has to make. If you're not good enough in training leading up to the game, you're not going to start. It doesn't matter if your name's Landon Donovan and you have the all-time goal-scoring record and the all-time assist record or not. You're going to sit. And in this case, it was the right decision, because if you watched, even before that game, when you saw that lineup, the first thought I had was, wow, that's weird. And then you look at it a little bit more and you go, well, this team, with Bradley there at the point, and Graham Zusi on the right, Brad Davis on the left, Kyle Beckerman, the underrated Kyle Beckerman, in front of the back line, at least in midfield, that team was built to pass. Built to knock the ball around. And they did it for 45 minutes. Vince from Toronto, what's up?
Oh, hey, Jason. How's it going?
It's going, man. What's up?
Hey, I'm going to give you my Canadian perspective on the American game.
Do we need that? Do I really want that? I'm kidding. Go ahead.
No, so, watching the game yesterday, I like, by the second half, I was a bit out of it because I was tired, but, and you're absolutely right. The cliche game of two halves. The U.S. is not a 90-minute team, and that's a concerning thing that needs to be worked on. But I liked Wando. I thought early on in the game he was a pest. And then he had that fantastic. What I liked about his goal was that he was running into the box. He saw Bradley behind him, and instead of continuing his run, he peeled off to go to the far post, and then Bradley got the flick on header, and he knocked it in. This is going to be an unpopular opinion, Jason, but I honestly believe the U.S. will be a better team in terms of chemistry when Dempsey retires from the national team. I understand what Dempsey brings, and I know how talented he is, but the fact that he doesn't have a defined role either as an attacking midfielder or as a striker is an issue when it comes to the cohesion. And we've seen that in other games before, where he doesn't necessarily know what he's doing in terms of where he's supposed to be when the ball's being played in. And I do feel like that hampers the U.S.'s attack a bit.
It was interesting, Vince, just to tip in on that Dempsey point. A lot of where's Dempsey? He's anonymous in the first half. He did make the release pass to Beltran that led to Wando's goal, because he found Beltran in space, a one-touch pass to Beltran in space, who played it to Bradley, who crossed it to Bradley, who flicked on for Wando. But generally speaking, he didn't touch the ball a lot in the first half. And then you get him in the second half, and it wasn't until that last 5 or 10 minutes when you could actually see what Clint Dempsey was contributing. He was making some passes. He put Eddie Johnson through on what should have been a goal. So it's there, but I do think you've got a point. What exactly? It can't take him 85 minutes to come into the game. It can't. And he needs to figure out what he's doing before that. So Is it a matter of the personnel on the field? Is it a matter of Dempsey being bounced back and forth between midfield and striker in this case? I don't know, because again, the quality is clear, and he was making those. He was his greatest influence in the second half, because in the first half he was barely there. Was when he dropped into where Michael Bradley had been previously occupying space.
No, you're absolutely right. I mean, the issue with the two formation that the U.S. likes to trot out is that with the 4-2-3-1, Dempsey's playing in the hole, but that's not necessarily his best role. He's not a creative player. He plays better off the shoulder of the lead striker, if it's Josie Altidore or if it's Eddie Johnson, and then drifting in between the wingers and the striker. But then in the 4-4-2, he's not a central midfielder, and he's not an out and out striker to play beside. In this game is playing with Wondolowski. So it does bring a headache. This guy with all this talent, we have to play him though.
Yeah.
And you would think after the World Cup, Klinsmann may see how Johansson and Josie do up top together, or whoever. I'm not
against that idea, Vince. I do think that there's something to be said for Clint Dempsey as a decoy, as an occupier of defensive attention. And I'm not saying that that's what happened last night. And I'd have to go back and watch the game again to really get a sense if that was a part of it. But at least when you pair him, because again, we haven't seen the United States in a two-striker setup except for late in the game via adjustment in a while. When he has a striker who's buzzing around like Wando is like to do, Wando doesn't stop moving. Then he can be the guy that's occupying defenders. Dempsey, you don't want to give Dempsey space. He'll get a shot off. He'll score. So that could benefit that second striker. It's just not. I don't think that dynamic works if you have Josie Altidore on the team. So there's some, again, another headache. You got anything else, Vince?
Just two quick things. One, I do believe that's why Klinsmann is grooming Diskerud for that attacking midfield spot, because if he wants to keep that formation that he's used throughout qualifying, Diskerud in that hole, if he gets an extended run of games and he keeps growing as a player, could be that creative outlet that the U.S. needs, especially as a first wave of attack with Michael Bradley coming in behind him. And secondly, I'm going to get to it, I know, but Omar Gonzalez, we have to hope he improves. If he doesn't improve, then, you're once again, the backline's going to have even more questions than it already does.
Yeah.
Thanks for taking my call, Jason.
Thanks, Vince. Appreciate it. 562, you're on the air.
Hey, what's up, Jason? Byron.
What's up? Who's this?
Byron.
Hey, Byron. What's up, man?
About the game yesterday, there's something I saw that I've seen before, and that's Parkhurst is not a left back. I mean, I saw that against Korea as well. He could be good defending, but going forward or going one-on-one, I mean, that's just not his thing. And there's no service either from that left side, and I think...
No, but that was... Look, they knew that going in. He didn't have any other options at that left back spot. Byron's gone, but he didn't have any other options at that left back spot. He didn't have DeMarcus Beasley in. DeMarcus Beasley's going to give you a ton going forward, but DeMarcus Beasley's not going to be a great defender. I thought Parkhurst was fine. I thought he was serviceable, and considering the circumstance, I don't have a problem with serviceable in that game with, again, your left back option, your first left back option not available. So that was not my concern. I'm not going to focus on that because I honestly don't expect Michael Parkhurst to be playing left back at the World Cup. I'm not sure I expect DeMarcus Beasley to be doing it either. And we'll find out what Klinsmann's going to do with that spot. I think, to Vince's point about Omar Gonzalez, that's one of the major concerns. By the way, phone line's open, 347-756-6276. I want to know, and we'll get to Omar here in a second, I want to know what you were most encouraged by. I want to know what you were most discouraged by, what scared you the most. And then we'll talk a little bit about the formation, whether or not Klinsmann's going to stick with this, whether or not it can work against Ghana, Portugal, or Germany. 219, you're on the air.
Hi, this is Cole, and I fell asleep before Adu got on. I was just thinking, what did you think of him?
He was okay. He was all right. I mean, I don't think he's the passer of Kyle Beckerman. I don't think he moves the ball around as much. He's certainly more athletic and covers more ground, which has its own positives. This is the thing about Beckerman that gets lost. Yes, Beckerman's foot speed is slow. He's not going to cover a ton of ground. If you end up in a position where a team can exploit that space between Beckerman and the back line, which Beckerman is positionally sound, and he's going to lock himself down there, which is why Bradley was able to get forward and be so effective, then you're okay. In this case, Mexico didn't do it in the first half. They did it in the second half a little bit more, although a lot of that was wide play, so not necessarily on Beckerman. Adu came in again. He was fine. I didn't really think that he helped his case in any major way, but he certainly didn't hurt it either. And you can kind of conceive of the notion that Maurice Adu is sort of a hedge between Beckerman and Jones that could be useful. I just don't know if you have the room on the roster for him.
Yeah, so do you think in the 30-man squad next month that he can include Beckerman and Adu, or do you think he'll just choose one?
It's a good question. I think he should include Adu. I would be but see, at the same time, I would be upset if Adu went over Beckerman. That wouldn't be right for me. Right,
but Adu can play center back too.
Yeah, he can, but you also have Jeff Cameron. You're going to take Michael Parkhurst. I don't know that you necessarily need more cover there. There is questions at center back, and maybe we'll be talking about Jeff Cameron as a starting center back, or maybe we're talking about Clarence Goodson as a starting center back. That's an open question, and Klinsmann after the game did say that nothing has been decided at the center back spot. He doesn't have his starters yet for the World Cup, and that's not necessarily a surprise based on how they play, but it is a little bit troubling at this point, and you have to consider the options. In terms of Maurice Adu, he's going to go as a midfielder. He can't go as a central defender. I understand that Klinsmann values versatility, but that's not why you take him. You got anything else, Cole?
No, I'm good.
All right, man. Thanks for the call. 480, you're on the air.
All right.
Hello, Alex calling from San Antonio.
What's up?
I enjoyed the first half. I thought the team was in sync. They were passing well. But during the second half, when Mexico made its adjustments, we need to find out how do we counter their adjustments during 45 minutes during the second half. So that's the question that I'm asking myself.
You know what? I think that, and look, I understand that this is going to look like I'm looking at this game through red, white, and blue colored glasses. I get that. But I think the first half is more representative of a real game than the second half. Okay, look, it's a friendly. You toss it out. I said this on Twitter. That first half and the way they ping the ball around and the chances they created does not mean that they are a shoe-in to go through. It doesn't mean that they're going to beat Ghana or Portugal or Germany. It doesn't mean any of that. It's just slightly encouraging, and there's some players who help their cause, and it's great to have Michael Bradley on this form. Second half doesn't mean they're going to fail either. And you look at the second half, and to the point here, why weren't there adjustments? I think the plan was already in place. Klinsmann knew. He came out at halftime and told Jeremy Schaap that he was going to put in Julian Green, Landon Donovan, and Clarence Goodson. There was already a plan in place. He wasn't going to change that in order to counter Mexico's adjustments from half. Because it's a friendly. Because ultimately, for Klinsmann, seeing those players on the field and getting that plan that he already had set up for this game enacted was more important than adjusting on the fly to win the game. And again, okay, let's bring this to Omar. Okay, let's talk about Omar Gonzalez. 347-756-6276. What does Omar Gonzalez bring to the table? Well, he's dominant in the air. He can be dominant in the air, although he was beaten for one header at the back post that bothered me a lot. He is a strong emergency defender. He makes reasonable challenges in the box. I can't remember last time I saw a penalty called on Omar Gonzalez. And he makes a lot of sort of last-ditch challenges. Now, part of that is trying to keep a line, having to turn and catch up to a quicker player. And because of his size, and he has relatively decent foot speed for a center back of his size, he can make those last-ditch challenges. But what he does, the problems he has, is he occasionally switches off, and he has issues on set-piece marking. How that's a thing, I don't know. Now, the first goal, Rafa Marquez's goal, I think you could put equal blame on Gonzalez and Beckerman there. Gonzalez gets run into the pick. Now, should he be aware of that? I don't know. His eyes are on Rafa Marquez. There has to be a switch there. There has to be communication. Beckerman needs to slide off and track Rafa Marquez. I mean, basic defending there. So, yeah, maybe you put it on Gonzalez. I put it on Kyle Beckerman as well. But Gonzalez had several other moments where he's switched off. And if he's good for 89 and a half minutes, that's great. It's that 30 seconds that you worry about. 310, you're on the air.
Hey, Jason, this is Alonzo from Downey.
What's up, man?
Oh, man. First half was great. It was great football. They were moving the ball well. And then second half, I mean, I like that 4-4-2 we were playing. I was just thinking right now, I was like, man, what if Johansson would have been up there? You know, we've been wanting to see him up there with Josie. I think in the 4-4-2 that would work. But going into that second half, man, Gonzo was just really discouraging, you know? He looked great in the first half, and then that second half came and just kind of like just messed up bad. But I think overall, I like the game. I like that you know, although we got those 2 goals, they still kept pushing, trying to fix the errors, and you know, they should have had that 3rd goal, but in the first place, we should have never had those 2 goals.
Yeah.
And then I like the Bradley Beckerman pairing. It just gives Bradley that whole freedom to just kind of, you know, go forward and create. And
you know what?
I like that.
I think that the general American soccer public, the U.S. men's national team fan base, has come to the conclusion, and we'd have to do some serious polling to find out if this is true, but I bet you it is, that Michael Bradley is better when he's not playing with Jermaine Jones. Now, that could be Kyle Beckerman behind him. It could be Jeff Cameron behind him. It could be, I don't know, you could throw Danny Williams. I'm not sure I trust Danny Williams yet. But I think that's the general consensus, and everybody is saying it, but Jurgen Klinsmann has yet to show that he has any inclination of benching Jermaine Jones. So when we get to that World Cup, when we get to that first World Cup game against Ghana, it's going to be telling. I mean, because I understand that Jones has the pedigree, and I think he's a good player, but I think that whenever he puts on that U.S. shirt and he's asked to stay in, I don't know what he's asked to do. Let's just say that, because I don't know what's happening in the dressing room ahead of the game, the locker room ahead of the game, and what his responsibilities are supposed to be. But it's clear that the United States is better when Michael Bradley is playing ahead of whoever the other partner is behind him. And if that is clear to Klinsmann, then maybe we'll see an adjustment, because I don't think you can I don't think you can put Jermaine Jones on the field and have him be disciplined enough. I just don't think it's in his makeup.
No, not by far. I mean, it almost seems like he just wants to do so much, and rather than you know, to do good, sometimes, you know, he just makes too many mistakes. But you know, hopefully Klinsmann sees it, and you know, maybe in these other friendlies that we have coming up, you know, he might give it another try and see what works for him. I mean, you know, we the fans, you know, we see it. We see that Bradley, you know, can be great offensively, and hopefully Klinsmann can see it too. You know, and it's just lastly, Yedlin, man, that guy, you know, came up, loved this game last night. You know, he only played 20 minutes, but yeah. I think in those 20 minutes he was good. Thanks, Jason. Have a good one, man.
Appreciate the call, Alonzo, man. Thanks a lot. Yeah, DeAndre Yedlin showed well. I don't know that that's going to get him on the World Cup team. I think that's a long way to go. I mean, he's one for the future. He's a guy that should be looking towards for 2018, perhaps 2016 in the Olympic team. He is eligible, right? Still young, right? I mean, I know we've got a World Cup here. Let's get excited about that. Let's look towards that. Group of death makes it tough, and I think that it's interesting to see sort of how American soccer fans on Twitter react. And I know Twitter is not the entire fan base. Twitter is not representative necessarily. Twitter is a damn negative place. Twitter is a negative place. For everything that good that happened in the first half, it's almost like it didn't happen when that second half came around. And I know it's much. Our instincts are to focus on the negatives, because those, look, you have one moment, you have one bad moment on a set piece, or you lose a mark, or you switch off for a second and make a bad pass, turn the ball over. That could be the game against Ghana or Germany or Portugal. So I get that, but again, it's like all that good stuff never happened. It's strange. And I sort of want to rail against. I mean, I get where it comes from. But nobody was saying, based on what happened last night in the first 45 minutes, nobody was saying, wow, they're really going to go to the World Cup and dominate. They're really going to crush some teams. They're really going to play toe-to-toe with Germany or Portugal. This is really going to be a great World Cup. No one was saying that. We were taking baby steps here. looking at what the United States was doing on the field and saying, all right, look, this is positive. Whether or not it translates, it's positive. Now, you could argue, and I do have this, but look, as fun as that first half was, I do feel as though Klinsmann may have done his team a disservice by trotting out that formation and playing that game for the first 45 minutes when it's unlikely to be the way he plays in Brazil. Can you really imagine Klinsmann putting his team out in a 4-4-2 with a Diamond and Michael Bradley at the top of it in any of those games? Certainly Portugal and Germany, you don't think that that's going to work. And Ghana, I don't know. I think you're much more likely to see that standard for its standard now. 4-2-3-1 that he's been utilizing for how long has it been? How long has it been since he switched to that 4-2-3-1? More defensive cover. 5 men in midfield. Maybe Clint Dempsey's not the most effective player there in the hole. But really, where else are you going to put him? If you're going to play 2 strikers, you lose a man in the midfield. And when you're trying to combat the speed of attack of Ghana, Portugal, the way Germany passes the ball around, you may need that guy. 414, you're on the air.
Jason?
Yes.
Yep. Okay. First, I want to say that was like the best first half I've ever seen U.S. play against Mexico, or any half in any game. But I think I'm looking at it from a Mexican perspective. I think Diogo got it wrong with Peña and Fabian. I think in second half he put Fabian in the position to succeed, and he brought in Raúl Jiménez and moved him. And I think that was the big change.
But Fabian should be on. Fabian needs to be wide, from what I've seen.
Right.
He needs to be wide.
Right.
That's where he's most effective. And clearly, look, that was the tactical adjustment that Mexico made. That they affected the game because they found that the United States was not defending well. And that created problems for them. And look, again, set piece on the Rafa Marquez goal.
I can't believe that. That's, to be honest, if you ask me what is the Achilles heel for the Mexican national team, it's set pieces on offense and defense.
Mm-hmm. Well, it certainly showed itself on Bradley's goal.
Right.
That seemed like a very simple routine that they ran. Now, look, Rafa Marquez, that was a simple routine as well. A very simple pick that, again, Beckerman and Gonzalez have to figure out on the fly. They have to adjust for that. So that is a troubling fact. And again, this has been a theme. The lack of set piece effectiveness defensively for the United States has been a theme. And it's almost to the point where I don't think that any of us would really get upset if Klinsmann spent the entire build-up during the send-off series just train set-piece defense all day. Just do that. Don't even worry about anything else. Yeah, pass the ball around a little bit. No. Go work on those set pieces, because if you give up a goal on a set piece, you're just handing the advantage to the other team.
Exactly. And then I also thought that was a brave move by Klinsmann to keep Donovan on the bench. And I personally thought him coming off the bench in the second half against Mexico, I thought this was going to be a 3-1 scoreline. Because Donovan is the executioner, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. And he did not show up. He did not look good, you know what I'm saying? And that's a surprise.
He did look. He looked a little slow, looked a little lethargic. Didn't seem to have his same step. I think a lot of people are commenting because he came on with Julian Green, so you had that kind of picture of the past and picture of the future, which is a very cool story element. But you also had Donovan. He was pulling his shirt up and getting ready to come on. And a lot of comments about his midsection. A lot of comments about fat Landon Donovan. Not really. But, not the fittest Landon Donovan. And that's troubling. We just got through last season with his sabbatical to Cambodia, and he came back and he was on fire and he played well. And he dominated in that Gold Cup. And you just wonder if it's cycled back around now. And once again, though he didn't take a sabbatical this time, though he didn't take any time off, it's cycled back around where he's just not as committed as he used to be. And I'm going to have a hard time saying goodbye to Landon Donovan in the starting lineup of the U.S. national team. I will. But based on what but just based on the history. But
I agree. He's a phenomenal player. But also in that back line, Gonzalez has not looked good, in my personal opinion, for a club as well. So I mean, this is not. It's not like he had a hiccup in this game. He has not looked. I think he's looked pretty questionable, even at the club level.
It's only been a couple of games in the MLS season. I thought that he was. I thought he's been okay. I wouldn't say he's been great. He certainly has a high standard to live up to, and that's part of the problem. Is you judge Landon Donovan now on Landon Donovan of 5 years ago, and that's fair. That's the if you're going to look at him, you want him to be the best he can possibly be. Clearly, age and lack of interest when that's hit him has affected him. And again, he apparently had some tendonitis in his knee. I don't think that's an excuse, but I do think it obviously contributed to his lack of effectiveness last night. And that game was very different and very interesting by the time that Green and Donovan came on. And I guess that because it was so open, you would think that it would play to both of their strengths, and it did to some extent. Julian Green, we'll talk about here. I appreciate before I let you go, you got any thoughts on Julian Green? Go ahead.
Oh, I think he looked okay.
That's it.
At the big stage for a young kid, I think he looked okay. I mean, he did make some mistakes. You see, it's a tough game to play in at that age.
Yes, absolutely. I think that's a very strange, a tough place to make your national team debut. And now I don't know how much appreciation Julian Green had for everything that comes with that game before he put on his uniform and joined that team.
That's a very good point.
I don't know. I mean, maybe he does. I'm sure his dad's talked to him about it a lot. But it is a tough game for an 18-year-old kid. Again, with one senior professional appearance, one in his entire career, and he's got a long way to go. I thought he handled it as well as he possibly could, considering everything that he's dealing with, and that includes the lack of experience. That includes the stage that it was on in front of that crowd, and playing for a team that he's only now getting to know a little bit. And I don't think it was a penalty, but he certainly should have won a foul there at the corner of the box, and that could have been.
Yep, I agree with that.
That could have been another opportunity to score. Eddie Johnson was onside. We're not. I think it's interesting too, and maybe I'm not. Maybe I'm the only one who feels this. Yeah, I was upset that Eddie Johnson's goal was disallowed when it shouldn't have been, but I have other things to think about right now, and I'm not concerned about that scoreline. And I think that's a healthy way to look at it for national team fans. Anything else?
Yep. Oh no, that's it. Have a great day.
All right, man. Appreciate it. Got a couple of minutes left before we get to Vincent Gudibars, the chief medical officer, Dr. Vincent Gudibars, the chief medical officer for FIFPro. We'll talk to him about the report that FIFPro put out that indicates there is a high level of anxiety and depression in professional footballers. 571, you're on the air.
Hey, Jason?
Yes.
Yeah, I just want to know what you think about the jerseys they're wearing here there.
I like them. I'm fine with those. I have no problem. I know a lot of talk about the colors. They're too light. This is too that. The red makes it a big block. I like them. I'm more ambivalent than anything else, but if you ask me, do I like them or do I hate them, I'd say like them.
Yeah. I sort of agree. I thought they looked it's very strange, all that red. It just didn't look totally USA, but they're okay.
Well, but everybody's saying that. They don't look USA, but what does USA look like?
There is no USA look. But I don't know. I think until we find the look, I think everything should have looked to like anything else.
I suppose you could argue that breaking up the red block with say white shorts is fun. I'm just not. I just don't care enough. I don't. I know. Look, maybe it's because the idle hands on Twitter. What else you can talk about? I nearly made a joke last night where I was going to say, look, with this wide camera angle that we were getting there in Glendale, how are we supposed to analyze the kits? That's what we really care about. It's a fascinating element of fandom, the whole fashion police part of it.
Yeah, you got the England people right now just talking about the prices. I mean, the Prime Minister's talking about the prices for their jerseys, so I guess it's kind of important to people.
Yeah, David Cameron chiming in on the 90-pound price point for the England national team kit, saying it's too much, et cetera, wondering if Nike will make an adjustment. Apparently, Adidas, at one point in history, I think it was I saw this on ESPN. Somebody was talking about. Oh, no, it was on Crowd Goes Wild on Fox yesterday. They mentioned that at one point Adidas had the All Blacks contract, the New Zealand rugby team, and the price was too high and people threw a fit and they ended up adjusting the price downward. And we'll see if they do that for England. I don't really care. England can deal with it. I don't really care. All right, man. You got anything else?
No, it's Jimmy Hope.
All right, appreciate the phone call. There you go. There's your national team, USA, Mexico chatter for the day. In a couple of minutes, we're going to talk to Vincent Gudabars, Dr. Vincent Gudabars from FIFPro about this report. Very fascinating report on the amount of anxiety and depression in professional footballers. And again, I said it yesterday. It's easy for us as fans to sort of sit here and say, look, they're getting to play a game for a living, no matter how much money they're making, whether they're rich or not. How could they possibly have any anxiety in their life? Clearly, it's a relative part of life. Your anxiety and your depression is based on your condition. And there's no reason to assume that just because these guys are getting to play a game for a living, that they're not going to have that same kind of professional pressure, that anxiety day to day that everybody else deals with, that we all deal with in our daily lives. All right, let's take a break. When we come back, we'll get Dr. Gudabars on the line. We'll talk about it. Thank you again to Rick from Philly for this lovely music. We'll be right back.
Breaker, Big Ben, this here's a duck. Breaker 19, this here's a rubber duck.
Welcome back to Soccer Morning on NASN with Jason Davis.
This is what happens when it's 11:15 kickoff. I'm tired. I've messed up my timing. I've got a couple minutes before I get to Dr. Gudabars, so we're going to have to just come back. This is the joys of doing this show live every single day. Every single day we're live. And it's a fun time whenever we get on the air. You never know what's going to happen. In this case, my brain switched off. I saw a 0 when there's a 5. And now we have a couple more minutes until we get to Dr. Gudabars. So the phone lines are open, 347-756-6276. We'll break soon to talk about that FIFPro report. But in the meantime, USA-Mexico Champions League from yesterday. We had 2 Tuesday games that both ended in 1-1 draws, which set up for tense second legs. Yesterday, we had Real Madrid thumping Dortmund 3-0, and we had PSG taking to Chelsea 3-1. Especially that Pastore goal. Woo! Lovely stuff. Do either one of those teams, the losers, Dortmund and Chelsea, do they have a chance in their home legs? I'm not sure Dortmund does. Their back line is just too much of a disaster. Chelsea might, but I just don't see it. And in fact, I think that based on these results and what we saw yesterday, a lot of people are going to be jumping on the PSG bandwagon. Jump on that PSG bandwagon because they have the talent to win the whole thing. Whether or not they can be as sharp mentally as they need to be is the question. And a lot of very smart people who follow French football will tell you the thing that is most noticeable about PSG is that they do not get challenged enough in Ligue 1 for them to be as sharp as they need to be week in and week out in the Champions League. They did it yesterday. They turned it on yesterday, but they lost Ibrahimovic. Rick in Philly, thanks for Convoy, by the way.
Well, thanks for busting the fat beats, man.
Okay. All right. I don't know. That's the widest thing that's ever been said on this show, Rick. Thanks a lot, man.
And that's a high bar to clear. A quick thing that and it's a little off topic, but I think it ties into the Barcelona stuff if you're going to talk about it later today. Have you heard this about the investigation KNVB is doing into Chelsea's involvement with the test?
Yes, and in fact, we were planning on perhaps delving into that with our friend Peter McVitie, who you know very well, in the future. We just haven't had a chance to do it. Chelsea is being investigated, or Vitesse is being investigated. The owner of Vitesse has made or the former owner, excuse me, has made made accusations that Chelsea has a serious influence on Vitesse and their ability to compete in the league and go into the Champions League.
Yeah, de facto ownership in this case. Right.
Essentially, the accusation is that Chelsea is pulling the strings of Vitesse. Now, as far as I understand it, Rick, this is down to the loan agreements that these two clubs have together.
Not just the loan agreements. It's effectively they've been loaning players back and forth, and essentially Chelsea is using Vitesse as a minor league, and Chelsea during the last summer transfer period effectively blocked the transfer of Marco van Ginkel to Ajax and instead took him on to Chelsea. Didn't play him, but rather just held on to him to prevent him from going to Ajax. And now apparently they're giving direct instructions to Vitesse not to win the league. There's even questions that they were told to throw games to avoid qualifying for Champions League.
Yeah, very troubling stuff. And the connection here, if you're wondering why this would even be an issue, Roman Abramovich, and I'm not even going to try to say Vitesse's owner's name, but they're boys. They're boys from the oligarchy. They're friends, and there's clearly a relationship behind the scenes. Alexander Chigirinsky? I have no idea.
I've been trying to pronounce it for a couple days.
I have no idea. But that is the connection there. And I believe that Wilfred Boney is part of this as well on some level. It is troubling, and we will delve into it. Rick, I do have to go because we're going to get Dr. Gudabarj on the line.
Awesome.
But this is fascinating, and it does relate. Thanks a lot for the call. It does relate a little bit to it doesn't relate to Barca's deal, but it is interesting to see these big clubs coming under investigation for their chicanery. The things that they're doing that they're not supposed to be doing. And they have influence. They are either of the opinion that they are above the law in some regard, or they just don't care. Does Chelsea care that they are effectively telling a team to throw a league, to not go for a title, to not qualify for Champions League? Does Barca care that they're breaking rules regarding youth players? Does anybody care? All right, let's take a break. Now we're going to get Dr. Gudabarj on the line from FIFPro to talk about that report that there are a lot of footballers out there with depression, anxiety, dealing with mental health issues. Don't go anywhere. Soccer Morning with American Soccer Network, NASN.TV.
Breaker 19, this here's a rubber duck. You've got a copy on.
Welcome back to Soccer Morning on NASN with Jason Davis.
Back on Soccer Morning. The music is killing me. I apologize for the music. Rick, thanks a lot. On the line with me now, the Chief Medical Officer from FIFPro, Dr. Vincent Gudabarj. Hi, Dr. Gudabarj. How are you?
Hi, good morning, Jason. Hi.
Good morning. Now, Dr. Gudebarge is a former professional player himself, and as I said, chief medical officer at FIFPro. FIFPro has released a report on the amount of mental issues, mental issues that footballers deal with, and specifically, I think the big numbers we see, Dr. Gudebarge, come after these players retire. But what is it about the professional, about being a professional footballer that leads to some of these mental health issues that FIFPro has identified?
Well, I think you can distinguish different kind of stressors that may induce some mental health complaint in professional football. You have the physical stressor in terms of severe injury, surgeries that lead to long-term period without training or competition. And there are also some psychological stressors that may lead to mental health complaints. So you can think about the pressure perhaps on the player from the media, from the club, from the supporter. There are also some life events that occur in the private life of players that may also play a role in the occurrence of this kind of conditions.
You have the report says 26% of active players reported suffering from depression or anxiety and adverse nutritional behavior. Now, what that is you're talking about alcoholism, some of those symptoms that are exhibited when a person is suffering from depression or anxiety. And I suppose, Dr. Gudebarge, my question would be, while these numbers are troubling and they indicate a problem, is there enough being done? And I'm sure it differs from country to country and club to club, but is there enough being done to support players when it comes to these mental health issues?
No, I don't think that there is enough done. Well, of course, the number that you stated about the mental health occurring in current player, if you compare these numbers with the general young population, it's more or less the same. Mm-hmm. So it's not a bigger problem, but nevertheless, we know that since 1 decade approximately, that common mental disorder in the general population has become a really big issue. So I think our study acknowledges the fact that professional footballers suffer as much as other young people of mental health. Secondly, when it comes to the former players, the numbers are quite higher. Mm-hmm. So I think it's a bigger problem in a group of former players than in the current player.
And look, whether or not clubs are doing enough to support.
Well, in terms of management, we didn't explore really the view of our player about the management. That could be a second step, and we are definitely going to look at it, because the first step is first to point out which kind of problem occur in terms of mental health in our player, and then when we identify clearly which kind of problem they experience or they report, then we could develop and implement some specific support. Therefore, well, your question related to the support in clubs. Well, as you know, a player sign a contract for 1, 2, perhaps 3 seasons. So it's quite a short-term perspective, and the club do not think in long-term perspective of the health of a player. So I don't think that a lot of clubs care about the mental health in long-term of a player. To my opinion, I think that the key role relies more on the union or football federation. Mm-hmm. I think they are the stakeholders that should develop and offer a good support to their players.
Whether or not the clubs are doing enough, and as you said, it might fall to the players' unions or the federations themselves. The issue that you identify with former players, once they stop playing, the numbers almost double that suffer from depression and anxiety. Where should how do those players go about dealing with those? I mean, clearly the problem is that a major element of their life has now been removed, and with that free time and not necessarily knowing what to do with themselves, that they can't transition into a new career, they have nowhere to turn. Is there something that can be done to help them? And we see some of those very same issues happening in American sports, and there are lawsuits and and the leagues themselves are having to pay up to help deal with those issues. Is there anything that can be done for former players in a game as vast and as deep as world football?
I think there is definitely something to be done. However, I think that most of the former players, when they stop their career, they come in a position where they cannot find easily some support in their environment. Of course, they don't have a club anymore, so they don't have any employer on which they can rely on. That make it, of course, difficult to get any social support. But there is definitely some things to do, and I think the best solution and the most easy one is to prepare the life after football as early as possible. So in early stage of a football career, you should think about the second career you want to achieve once football is gone. And I strongly believe that in football youth academy, such a career planning path should be discussed with all young players, because a lot of them will not get to professional level, but for the one that will get to professional level, if they are aware about the life after football, I think it makes a big difference in order to find easily a new challenge when you are retired from football. And it's not only an issue in professional football. I think, as you acknowledge, it's something that is for all athletes in any sport disciplines.
Part of the development and the understanding of mental health is that we're removing some of those taboos that used to apply, and we certainly have had high profile troubling incidents, obviously the death of Robert Enke and things like that, Dr. Gudebarge, that stand out and draw some attention. Is there real movement on that level that the taboo is being removed and that we can deal with these honestly? Because while I believe that's the case on a wider level, I think down at the grassroots or within these clubs, that may not be the case.
Yeah, well, I think there is something going on right now, and not only in professional football, but also in all sport discipline. In the last, I think, 1 or 2 years, you see a lot of athlete unions from all sport discipline, not only football, but also in rugby union, but I guess also in the NFL in America or other sport discipline. They all try to get the mental health on their agenda, especially after retirement from elite sport or professional sport. So there is definitely something changing. However, I think if you speak about behavior change, you should be aware that for any change in any behavior in any human being, you need some time. It does not go from one year to another. So I think what we have done so far, it's a good step in order to raise self-awareness with regard to mental health problem. And I think it could be a good step in order to discuss, this kind of issue from the youth in all grassroots football players.
Not only is there an issue, and has been in the past, of players and in society in general, people not wanting to disclose the issues that they have with their mental health and therefore not getting treatment and it becoming a problem. There's also the way the media tends to treat high-profile examples of what may or may not be mental health issues, and I'm thinking about Paul Gascoigne here, Dr. Gudebarge. It seems that we almost stand there and sort of laugh at them rather than deal with the potentially troubling truth that there may be a mental health issue there.
Yeah, true. Of course, Paul Gascoigne is really a characteristic example of someone who gets bad addiction, just at the end of his career or after his career. And it's true, it's easy for the media to write about him and to give some news about him because he was famous, of course. But of course, there are, most of the players who are in the media and who are often in the media, it's, I think, not the real world of professional football. We have a lot of members who, unfortunately, do not earn so much money and do not have the same life as all the big stars that we know from the media. And for these people, the problem are a little bit different because they are not financially secure as other top players. So I think most of the people are not aware that professional football has also another side, a dark side, as we showed, and they don't know all the players who suffered from mental health problems, but perhaps also from other kind of health issue. But of course, we represent all footballers at any professional level. If it's top level or lower level, it doesn't matter. The health of all our professional football player counts the same in our perspective.
How much of these issues, and again, you did make the point that the numbers, at least in terms of active players, run relatively in line with the general population, but how much of the mental health issues that players face isn't just their profession, but sort of exacerbated by the culture in which they play?
Yeah, of course, there is, of course, a link with the context of professional football. We know that the pressure that is put on the player is quite huge from the media. You know, your life as a professional footballer, even if you are not a top player, it's always scrutinized by the media on and off the field. So, of course, it's definitely related to the professional football career, but I think there are also some psychological stressors that occur outside the football career, and that may occur in our normal life as well, such as a huge life event. If you lose someone in your near family, it has always some consequences in terms of mental well-being.
Dr. Goodbarge, what is the next step? I mean, we sort of talked around the issue and whether clubs and federations and unions should be tackling this head on. But what is FIFPro's role in helping that next step happen? Is it going to be federations and unions coming to you, or is it going to be a more proactive approach?
First of all, I think the study we just, from which the results were given, is still ongoing, because we are also involving some other country in such a study. So you have to think about French-speaking country and Spanish-speaking country as well. So I think it's we strive to gather some further information about the mental health in current and former player. But of course, once difficulties of problems have been identified, the next step is to define or to develop appropriate support system for the player, and it should be based on scientific evidence, as we strive to concur with all worldwide leading research team. So we definitely have to look what is available in the scientific literature in order to develop a good support system. I strongly believe that the unions should take the lead about the development of support, because if we wait some discussion moments with all other stakeholders in professional football, it may take a while. We know that FIFA and all other stakeholders have been conducting some good study, but most of all related to the physical health issue in professional football. So they all want to deal with the occurrence of musculoskeletal injury, but when it comes to mental illness and to the health of former player, they are not really dynamic on this field. So it's why I would like to sit with some unions in different countries and think about a good approach we could develop in order to help potential patients.
My last question to you. We've had a significant amount of coverage in the United States, and specifically, again, related to American football, the NFL, in regards to concussions playing a role in mental health issues post-career. And there have been a couple of studies that have said, in football and in soccer, there's some evidence of concussions in players because of obviously contact with the ball with their heads and certainly clashes and the like. Do you believe that that's an element in the numbers that you see or might see in the players, the ex-players?
Well, we also asked about to the participants about severe injury and also about head injury and concussion. I didn't publish yet the result, but I can confess that we didn't find any relation between concussion and mental health problem on the long term. But again, we didn't have a large group of participants. You know that concussion do not occur as often as in American football. Sure. So it's difficult to say. But I know the study that you mentioned, I think it was from 2007, when if a retired NFL player has one or more concussion, the risk to have a mental disorder after career was, I think, 2 or 3 times higher. So we are aware that concussion is definitely a risk factor in order to get some mental health issue on the long term. And it's I'm conducting also a study in a former rugby union player in South Africa and in Australia, and we are definitely involving the concussion issue in our study because we know from the NFL that it's really a huge risk factor for mental health disorder. But in professional football, concussion do not occur as often.
Dr. Vincent Goudebarge, the Chief Medical Officer at FIFPro, joining us to talk about the newly released study in regards to anxiety, depression, and mental health issues in footballers, both active and former. I appreciate the time very much, Dr. Goudebarge. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
There he goes. There's Dr. Goudebarge. It's a very, very important issue. It's clearly an important issue. Is there enough being done? I mean, that's debatable in the eye of the beholder. Again, I think it's worth pointing out that the numbers, the percentage of players, and this is just in the English-speaking world so far. As Dr. Goudebarge says, they're conducting studies in both French-speaking countries and Spanish-speaking countries. For the English-speaking countries that they've studied, there is the percentage of players who report mental health issues is effectively the same as the mental health issues in the general population, the percentage, which indicates there may not be an extra problem that comes with being a professional footballer. But that does not mean that there's not action to be taken, or that something shouldn't be done, or that clubs and unions and federations shouldn't be putting in support structures for these players. I mean, just because you're a professional athlete doesn't mean you shouldn't have somebody to turn to if you're dealing with something. And again, we sort of dehumanize professional athletes, professional footballers. We take them and we turn them into just that guy on the field for the 90 minutes we see him. Well, the guy standing in front of the microphone talking about why he made that mistake or why he didn't put that goal away. But they have rich lives off the field. If you go through a divorce, if you have a child die, you have a parent die, you have a sibling die, you have some kind of stressor in your life, it's going to impact you. And again, maybe because of the money some of them make, but not all of them, we shouldn't be overly concerned. But 40% in the ex-players, that's a high number. That seems like a high number to me. 40% of former footballers report some kind of mental illness. That's high. That indicates that something needs to be done. Some steps need to be taken. I thought Dr. Goudebarge on the concussion issue may have understated that just a little bit. I don't know. I'm not a scientist. I haven't done any research myself. Maybe I'm wrong. But we have seen an uptick in the number of stories and reports that soccer has its own significant concussion risk. It's not the NFL, not banging heads together on every play. It's not rugby union, which you're not really banging heads together in rugby union, but you have some physical contact, your head's involved, you're slamming into people on purpose on a regular basis. It's not that. But that repetitive action of heading the ball over and over and over can lead to that subconcussion, whatever that technical term is. So does that play a role in how those ex-players process the world when they're done? Not everybody has dealt with what Taylor Twellman or Alecko Eskandarian has dealt with. And I do think that there's something to be said for the fact that, generally speaking, concussions are underreported in soccer. Generally speaking. They're underreported in most sports. But I think specifically in Europe, I think concussions are underreported. So if a player doesn't know they have a concussion, goes on to playing, and then they're asked about their head injury past by someone like Dr. Gudabarsh, they say, no, I haven't had any head injuries. But they did. They were just never diagnosed, and the team didn't take any action. 757, you're on the air.
Hi, this is Tay. Thanks for taking my call.
What's up, Tay?
I had to switch the topic around, but actually called to talk about the Barcelona ban.
Sure.
In terms of like a Korean perspective, I guess.
Okay.
Because the reason that happened is because recruitment youth player evaluation, and like 3 of them are Korean, and they're pretty hot prospects.
Yeah.
And for me, like there's like almost a conspiracy against Barcelona in terms of these issues, because one of the hot prospects is Sung Leaf from he plays a striker in youth team. And the funny thing is, each time like his contract was to be renewed, this like punishment comes down. So basically, we know everyone does this. So this kid was part of K-League youth development program, and then his team got a chance to play against Barcelona youth team, and then Barcelona liked what he saw, so they asked him to join the team in the age of like 11. So he went over there. His parents never left Korea. His mom traveled back and forth basically to check on his son, but there was no like bones about it why he was there. He was there to play soccer.
Mm-hmm.
It's not because his parents somehow got a job in Spain or anything like that, or he lived 80 kilometers around the border or anything like that. So for 3 years, he was tearing it up in the league, scoring title and things like that. And he even participated in like a youth FIFA tournament. So he was part of a Korean youth national team and such. So, I mean, FIFA had to know, or somebody had to know, like, if players weren't able to join at 18, that he was there. So something was wrong, but nobody said anything.
Well,
right?
okay, Tay. I mean, I wonder if this is I don't know the process, and we're going to talk to David Cartledge about this and its impact on Barcelona specifically in a couple minutes. And in fact, I got to get going here, but I don't know if this requires someone to file a complaint in order for there to be action. And perhaps it's like a wink and a nod kind of situation. A lot of clubs do this. Why would we call out Barcelona and potentially bring the spotlight on ourselves as well? But somebody may have filed a complaint.
Yeah. So basically, what happened was that last year they were about to renew the contract, for 5 more years, which would take him to about age 20. And then what happened was when their bid came up, like teams like PSG, like Man City, they came with a higher bid, but Sung Lee decided to stay with Barcelona, and then 2 weeks later, the ban came down saying like the Barcelona violated FIFA rules. So he's not able to participate in an official match until he's 18, and then Barcelona will hit with a fine.
Okay.
So they're just helping him play an international tournament. And the last month, he was they wanted to renew the contract once more.
Okay.
And this time, the Barcelona wanted to help him out, help him relocate his family to Spain. He can be a professional. And other teams like Man City, like other English Premier League team came and try to pitch a higher wages, but he had to stay with Barcelona. And the week later, this ban came down. So
okay.
I understand that Barcelona has violated the rules and stuff. But
right. Well,
the way the Korean view is like, what's going on?
I understand, Tay. I get it. I appreciate the phone call, man. We're going to get David Cartledge on. Thanks a lot. We're going to get David Cartledge on in just a second. We'll talk about this. We'll talk about why Barcelona, why now, who else could be caught up in this. It's I don't know if it's troubling. It's interesting. Don't go anywhere. Soccer Morning, North American Soccer Network, NASN.TV. Be right back.
Breaker.
We call David on the phone, right? Oh, wait, hold on. Let me make sure I have this number right. Okay, I have a different number.
Breaker 19, this here's a rubber duck. You got a copy on me, Big Ben? Come on. Yeah, 10-4, Big Ben.
Welcome back to Soccer Morning on NASN with Jason Davis.
10-4, Big Ben. Convoy. This show's a convoy. I don't know. David Cartledge, our Spanish football expert who I love talking to, joins us now on the line. Follow him on Twitter. It's David Jaca, Jaca. David, how are you, sir?
Hello, nice to hear from you. I'm doing very well, thank you. I hope all the audience is doing well, too.
I hope they are as well. We're all the Americans are tired, on the East Coast anyway. The West Coast people, we don't really care about them. We are here to talk about some Spanish football, as always, with David. I'm going to start in the Champions League. We're going to get to the big non-match headline, which is Barcelona's transfer ban. But let's start with what's going on with these Spanish clubs in the Champions League. We had Barcelona, Atletico Madrid playing to a 1-1 draw. Diego Simeone did, I imagine, what he wanted to do. Now, it's tough to give up that goal to Neymar, but they played well enough that they go back home now with a chance to beat Barcelona.
Yeah, definitely. They stuck to the traits of their style and what Simeone has integrated into them, basically. And they got over the loss of Diego Costa, who went down injured, of course. I think there was some moments of struggle in the immediate passages of play from Barcelona after the injury for Costa. Atleti really retreated and gained maybe 25, 30 yards, giving up that much ground after Costa went off because he's such a big defensive player for them, despite being an attacker. But yes, they navigated that well, and they got a very good draw, and I think it's going to be one hell of an atmosphere at the Calderon. I'm looking forward to that one.
Diego Costa, big player for Atletico, and obviously Barcelona lost PK as well. Which one of those absences, I don't know what Diego Costa's prognosis is, whether he can come back in time. I haven't seen what the seriousness of the injury is. I don't think PK's got any shot. Which is the bigger loss? Because Barcelona's back line has not been good, and now they lose what may be one of their better defenders, as strange it is to say.
Yeah, funnily enough, I've just been writing an article on this very subject this morning, comparing the two injuries. So people who do follow me might get to read that. But I believe that Costa is the biggest loss for me, given given how integral he is to the system. Like we've just been saying, he's a defensive component as well as an attacking one as well. And the system is very much based around him and how he stretches the defence, the opponent's defence, how the midfielders, Atleti's midfielders look for him. And the game is just very much based around Costa. And if he's sold, a player will come in and they'll have to do that all over again, where they build a system around him. Whereas with Barcelona, yes, it's a massive loss because there's so much unfamiliarity in the defensive line at the moment for Barcelona. We'll have no Victor Valdés. Dani Alves is very attacking more than ever these days. So, you take him away almost from that. No Carles Puyol. Now Piqué is injured, obviously. And then you've only got Alba there, who did well the other night, by the way, who is the familiar face there. So Mark Bartra will have to come in. Very competent young defender. He's 23-year-old. I think he should have had more minutes at this point in his career at Barcelona than he actually has. And I think he'll come in and do a good job. But yes, I mean, Puyol, Piqué, you're going to miss those two because they are two huge pillars where so much success with what Barcelona have had is built around them.
How much of a disappointment is it to draw at home in the opening leg for Tata Martino and this team?
Yeah, I think it's a big disappointment, especially given how strong Atleti are at home. They really are formidable there, and they could take any team down. I think at the Calderon, it's such a fortress, a Cholo Castle, as the Atleti fans call it, because it's very hard to penetrate them there. And Barcelona are really going to have to be on their game. People like Neymar and Messi, they can't have half games. They're going to have to give extra 110%, if anything, to break Atleti down, because that Atleti defence is, we talk about familiarity, the lack of, shall we say, with Barcelona. Well, there's plenty of familiarity in the Atleti defence. They've played together for a couple of years now. Courtois, Godin, Miranda, Felipe Luis, Juan Fran, they know each other so well. They could play with their eyes closed how well they know each other. And it's going to be very difficult for Barcelona and very disappointing, despite all their talent, yes.
Do the weekend fixtures play any role in the return leg? Because Atletico Madrid has Villarreal. We know that both these teams fighting it out for the La Liga title. Atletico has Villarreal and Barcelona has Real Betis, and Betis is at the bottom of the table. You would imagine that Barcelona could get by with rest. Are they going to be able to do that in light of the fact that things are so tight at the top?
Yeah, I think Betis kind of accepted their fate at the weekend just gone. They were beaten by Malaga at home. I think that was their last big shot of trying to turn things around. I think that's gone for them now. So I think Betis are probably going to be playing for pride more than anything. And no, I can't see them putting up any fight at this stage, really, Betis. So I think Barcelona can stroll that one with a few changes, bringing the likes of Alexis in, even maybe people like Sergio Roberto and Montoya in. Whereas Atleti, it's a more of a tougher game. I think Villarreal, they're very much in the midst of that European race. They just got knocked out of the Europa League rankings at the weekend, and they need to get back up there with Real Sociedad and Sevilla. And even Athletic Bilbao is still catchable at this point with the amount of games to go, even though it will be difficult. So I think Villarreal are looking to give a big game. It's going to be a tough one for Atleti, but they haven't really got the squad to make many changes at the moment. You've got Costa's injury, and then people like Jose Sosa and Ceballos Rodriguez, they're going to have to come in. And these aren't top quality players, shall we say. So Simeone is going to be hoping they can grind it out with a bit of determination, their willpower.
Real Madrid took care of business yesterday against Dortmund. Comprehensive sort of win that serves them well heading into the return leg. That you make them overwhelming favorites to the point where I don't know anybody's going to be picking Dortmund to even make much of a. Well, they'll make a game of it, but whether or not they can come back seems out of the realm of possibility. And now Real Madrid, of course, has been building this momentum, but they seem to be the favorite unless you're going to sort of go off book and pick PSG, David.
Yeah, I mean, we discussed it before. I think we both agreed that Bayern and Real Madrid are the two big beasts left in the competition. They're going to be the two teams to beat, and I think it remains very much so. It was such a professional job by Real Madrid the other night. They have looked a bit shaky in recent weeks. Questions have been raised, but boy, did they answer them against Dortmund. Dortmund just weren't there. I understand Dortmund have got lots of injuries. They had a suspension there to Lewandowski, so that was difficult for them. But the way Real Madrid went about their business was very professional, very workmanlike, ruthless. The way they just put the tie to bed, like they did against Schalke as well. And yeah, that's a bit of a problem off their minds now.
Ruthless is the word that most immediately comes to mind when we're talking about this specific Real Madrid team. They have been ruthless in this incarnation. And again, they are favorites at this point, just partly based on everything they've done, but also based on the other teams left in the competition and sort of being unconvincing. Now, at this point, Real Madrid sitting in third in La Liga, still have a shot there, I imagine, and then chasing the Champions League. Where is the how do they split the focus, I guess, is the question. They have Sociedad on the weekend, I believe.
Yeah, they do, and again, Real Sociedad, it's at Anoeta, which is a tough stadium to go to. But and they're chasing that Champions League spot, they're chasing Europa League, so they've still got plenty to play for, Real Sociedad. And I don't know, I could see this as a fixture certainly that Real Madrid slip up in. And at the moment right now, the draw will feel like a loss. The way considering how tight it is right at the top. So it's going to be very tough for them. A few changes, perhaps. Again, very careful changes by Ancelotti, and hopefully they can get that result out to keep their title challenge alive. But it won't be easy. I think Barcelona have got an easy fixture this weekend, but I think Real Madrid and Atleti are going to really have to pull all the stops out, despite it being such a high intensity period of football at the moment, where it's you play on a Wednesday, you play on a Tuesday, and then you play on a Saturday again, and then you come back around. So yeah, it's very high intense, but I think that's how it'll go.
I mean, look, it's funny because the 3-goal lead heading into the return leg is a good thing, but at the same time, and I'm not saying that Real Madrid is capable of being complacent in this competition, but at the same, it kind of creates a dilemma because you can't go to Dortmund and expect a foregone conclusion win, and you have the league and you have Sociedad. Very difficult stuff for Real Madrid now sitting third in La Liga. Let's shift from those Champions League matches, David, before we run out of time, and talk about Barcelona and the transfer ban that's been handed down by FIFA in regards to their youth policy, bringing in players under the age of 18. Now, my understanding is, and I'm still kind of catching up on the news because the headline has been that there's a ban, but the reasons for why have not been as explicit. Is it simply because they're bringing in players, signing players and bringing them in before they're 18, outside of the parameters that FIFA has in place?
Yeah, that's correct. So we're talking about kids from Korea, as we touched on before, South Korea. We're talking about kids from Morocco, Cameroon, places like this, Argentina with young Maxi Rolon, who's a very good player, and the Rosario boy like Leo Messi. Mm-hmm. So that's what we're talking about with those sort of players. So there's about 10 players involved in the whole ban, shall we say.
Is this an issue of, and as our caller Tay, he was focused on one of the South Korean players, is this an issue of someone filing a complaint? Because I can't imagine Barcelona is the only club that does this, David.
They're certainly not. Barcelona have been victims themselves. And, you look at the Manchester City and Arsenal academies over the last couple of years, and the number of Spanish players that they are taking from Barcelona it's quite a high volume. And everybody's at it. Nobody is immune from this. Everybody's taking a player from elsewhere, and somebody will cry victim, but they'll be doing it as well. I remember Valencia complained about Barcelona taking some of their players, but Valencia do it too. So you draw the line and saying, "Oh, well, you're worse than me at doing it," but it's not quite like that. It's every team is doing it, but Barcelona have been made a big example about, and there's such a high volume with Barcelona as well. We're talking 10 here, so it's going to be very difficult to get a direct settlement like Chelsea did in the past. People's using that as a precedent, perhaps saying, "Oh, Chelsea, they appealed it and they got away with it," but the difference was they settled out of court with the club directly. With Barcelona, it's 10 players, and some of them have been. I mean, the South Korean player we're talking about, the South Korean, the Football Association were involved in that. They helped that deal take place. Right. They helped take him out of his academy in South Korea, his particular club, and move him to La Masia. So that's how far-reaching this is.
That's the fascinating part for me. That everybody sort of just said, you know what, we know these rules are in place, but they don't really matter. We're not really going to follow them. And again, it's not just Barcelona. It's sort of rampant activity, and I imagine that Barcelona is going to feel victimized. But what grounds do they have for an appeal, David? If it is obvious that they have committed these violations, really, what the appeal? As you said, Chelsea settled out. Barcelona can't do that with 10. why even bother appealing it? Why not just take the ban? Are you with me, David?
Yeah, sure, yeah. No, I know I understand what you're saying, but I don't really see any, and I don't see personally any grounds for appeal here. I don't think they're going to get away with it. I don't think they're going to get away with it this time. The ban's going to stay.
So then
in place.
the ban is the appealing the ban is essentially they're just trying to push it back as far as they possibly can, because it's not necessarily about getting the decision overturned. It's just being allowed, now that they know that it's coming, to address their player personnel issues before it goes into effect.
Yeah, I understand. I understand what you're saying there. They're going to have to change things in a big way. But looking at the Barca statement they put out, they put a 15-point statement out. You know, they are denying really any wrongdoing. They are making excuses, but they've done this in the past. But I think they kind of need to stop making excuses, and they need to take action in what's going on in house, because there's a lot of trouble with the board anyway, Barcelona at the moment. So this sort of incompetence, which I think they knew was coming. I think they probably knew this ban was coming. That's how I feel, because the incompetence levels of Barcelona are so high when it comes to the board. So I think they knew it was happening, and I think they're going to have to deal. They're going to have to deal with the problem that they've created now, basically.
Last question before I let you go, because I'm rapidly running out of time. If the ban goes into effect with immediately, if the appeal is not successful in pushing it back, how much damage does that do to Barcelona for next season and the season after?
Yeah, we've probably got two players here. We're talking about who they have got pre-contracts with, and that's Ter Stegen, which is the goalkeeper from Borussia Mönchengladbach, and Haliovic, the young Croatian midfielder. So we're talking the pre-contracts with them two look to be set in stone. So they would get them two players by the sounds of things, the way the lawyers are talking, who represent these players. But in terms of the long-term damage, they've got people like De La Feu and Rafinha coming back from loan, who are very, very good players, very good young players that have come back. But yeah, because the team is deteriorating. We've got Puyol retiring, you know. You've got people like Valdez, contract obviously in the situation everybody knows it is, and he's going to go at some point. And then they need reinforcements there. So this could do a hell of a lot of damage in terms of Barcelona competing at the top level. I think they can still compete in La Liga, but in terms of competing for those high players, yeah, it's going to do a lot of damage in terms of how high Barcelona can reach against likes of Bayern Munich and probably Chelsea, PSG, who will be buying, adding to their squad strength, and then Barca's going to have to rely on these players to get back from loan.
You know, I'm cynical about these things in general, and I don't believe that Barcelona was ever some paragon of virtue, but they certainly had a character that gave them, you know, something else, some extra feeling, and it's the more than a club feeling. It's the community. It's being Catalan. It's all of that. Is the bloom off the rose in that regard? Are they now just like everybody else, taking money from Qataris and bringing in kids outside of the rules?
Yeah, I mean, I think inside of Spain, I think everybody's known about it for a while. You know, about the way Barcelona go on, and this whole more than a club thing has been a bit overblown, shall we say? They are hardly Snow White by any means, you know, in the last 5-10 years or so. But yes, in the more recent time, you're looking at the last 2 to 3 years, and certainly there's a bit more of a darker cloud over there, and you kind of see the inner workings of the club. And it isn't very nice. But there's a lot of Barcelona fans who are very unhappy with the way the club has been run as well. It's not just a kid. They're not in denial about it. They're not saying, oh no, we're still Snow White, we're still this lovely club, we've still got better morals than anybody else.
Right.
I don't think they're saying that. I think they want to see a change at their club. They want to see the current board out. They want to see a good board with morals come in and get back to the standing of what Barcelona should stand for, what it's written that they should stand for.
Be interesting to see if they can regain some of that moral compass and still compete on the same level as Bayern Munich and Chelsea and all of these other PSG and the money that's come in. David Cartledge, go follow him on Twitter. David JACA is his Twitter handle. I'm looking forward to the piece on Diego Costa and PK's injuries. Thanks for your time, David. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Nice speaking to you as ever.
There goes David. We are done for the day. We have run right up against it. Thursday edition. I'm tired. If this show stunk, the guests were great. But if this show stunk on my level, it's because I'm tired. I was up late. I have to watch the game live. I can't go back and watch the game on DVR. I'm not that guy. I can't do that. Please go to soccermorning.com. Consider contributing to the show to keep us going. We are listener supported. We need your help. You can either you can either sign up for a subscription contribution or a one-time contribution. Either one is gratefully accepted. We appreciate all the help you guys are giving us out there. Soccermorning.com for that. We've got a bar that'll show you just how close we are to our monthly goal to keep us going. In the meantime, you can follow us on Twitter at soccermorning.com. DavisJSN is my handle. Hey, Hayward, go follow Trevor as well. He tweets about beer and soccer. It's fun. Thank you very much to our guests, Dr. Gudabarge and David Cartledge. We'll be back tomorrow with another big episode. And thanks to Rick and Philly for this lovely song, Convoy. Breaker 19. We'll see you guys tomorrow. Bye.
Big Ben for sure. By golly, it's clean clear to Flagtown. Come on. Yeah, it's a big 10-4 there, Big Ben. Yeah, we definitely got the front door, good buddy. Mercy sakes alive. Looks like we've got us a convoy. Was it dark in the